Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement and the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Bears United, and I'm joined today by the dad himself, Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo. What's up, bro?
I'm not even going to answer that question, man. I just want you to show everybody the shirt you got.
Yeah. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and check out the shirt. It says "I can't call it."
He set me up. When we first linked up this morning, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, what's up, AJ?" And in true AJ fashion, I said, I can't call it. He unzipped his zipper like Superman and had the "I can't call it" shirt on. So
I should have waited to do it on the podcast. I know Billy's probably upset because I did it too prematurely, but I was too excited to show him my shirt. Shout out to
that's your nickname, Ryan. Premature Ryan. Man.
Oh, come on. Here we go.
That has many meanings.
Oh, man. We're also joined today by my boy Billy, a.k.a. The Savage. What's going on, Billy? He don't have a mic today, but he's in the background.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, man. And then we're joined by one of my long-term, really, really close friends I've known since grade school, 8 years old. Started playing football with his dudes on the Rialto Dolphins. My boy, Deyon Mcelroy. So what up, Deyon?
How you guys doing?
We good. So, so funny story. Shout out to my wife. It's kind of funny. My wife has become a podcast listener, as of recent. So I got to make sure I watch what I say now. But
it's a game changer.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. So, she started listening to the podcast. Shout out to wife, my boo. And so the other day, my wife, she does a lot. She stays at home with the kids every day, bro. We think we got a dangerous job, bro. Try staying at home with 3 kids, bro, every day.
No, bro.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah, bro. So she needs a thin blue mom shirt or something like that. Whatever. But anyways, she, I was like, let me just give you the day. I'm going to let you go stay at or let you stay at home by yourself. Just like a day of serenity, bro. So I took all the kids. We went to my mom's house. So then, when I came home, she was like, "Look what I got." So then she showed me the shirt. I was like, "Oh, okay, boo. I see you. I see you listening to the podcast, though."
That's funny. So you didn't even talk to her about it?
No. So she had heard, and then so shout out to our follower too on Facebook, because somebody was actually gonna make us a shirt too.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah, so I appreciate you for even thinking about us. Shout out to you. So, anyways, what's the latest news, fellas? What's the latest news? You guys still on lockdown out there, AJ?
You said we still what?
You guys still on lockdown?
Yes, we are still on lockdown. Man, it's weird. I was just listening to this clip from this bar owner. There's this guy, Chris Corso. He's owned bars in Columbus forever. That's just what he does. He just owns bars, and he got a couple citations for social distancing. So we are opening, but even the bar owner said, he's like, no one really knows which direction we're going or what we're doing. And I'm getting citations because no one could guide me in the right direction. So we definitely live in weird times, man, because we open the bars and restaurants, but only the patios. You can't be inside. You got to be outside in the patio. We did that last week, and I can't tell you how many phone calls we got. People calling the police they're not social distancing. I'm like, you calling the wrong one. I don't know what to do with that. Do you want me to go join them?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because I almost find out, and we're going to talk to Deyon here in a minute about this, but I almost feel when in doubt, call the police. It's
everything, bro. Everything.
It seems like the police just kind of turn into everybody's problem solver. And it's this ain't our issue right here. This is a city municipal. Y'all could go out there, send somebody, leave a citation at the door. But
the health department.
But yet we always get ourselves, or we always become the answer to everybody's problem. And we're seeing that a lot in New York, where these dudes is getting in scraps over social distancing, bro. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
I don't know if it's worth it. So
no,
it's definitely not. It's definitely not worth it.
No, listen. I get it. Trust me. I'm not gonna sit here and say I don't get it, but at the same time, I'm not about to go out here and grab somebody and get into a fight over some social distancing. You want to go out here and get sick, man, that's, you get a citation, but that's on you, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so that's crazy. Yeah, we've been kind of living the same thing. They're still slowly starting to open things back up out here in Cali. Whatever that looks like. I don't know what it does, but they're slowly starting to, open up restaurants again. I don't actually know. We still haven't opened up the restaurants. It's been more so just kind of like shopping centers and things like that. Still doing drive up, but I'm kind of confused. 'Cause I'm like, haven't we been doing this the whole time? Like, I know was able to go do drive ups. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna open everything up so you can do drive up. And I'm like, I've been doing drive up, like, and then like you said, like everybody's so different. And that's what's kind of been baffling me is like,
Yeah.
you got one city doing one thing, then another city doing another thing, one county doing one thing, another county doing another thing. Government don't get along with the president don't get along with the governor don't get along with the mayor, mayor don't get along with the governor. And it's just like, and then you just, so because everybody like don't get along with each other, you got a people that's in a disarray. And it's kind of funny how the people reflect what your government looks like. You know what I mean? Because government don't know what 100%. To do, so now the people don't know what to do. So Vegas or Deyon. So Deyon, if you guys don't know, Deyon, like I said, he's a close friend of mine. Deyon is a police officer as of 2 years ago, and he works for Las Vegas Metro. And so what's going on in Vegas, bro? And mind you guys, I lived in Vegas for like 5 years, so Vegas is like my second home unofficially. But what's going on in Vegas, Brody?
So I work in the convention center, it's the strip area, where dude, it was crazy. Like when they first started, it was weird seeing like a bunch of the hotels just all of a sudden like black, or it's just super dark and the strip is dead. That
would be wild.
Yeah, I guess they ease some stuff now, but it's kind of like you said, like, yeah, you could still do drive up and stuff like that. The hotels is closed. They're talking about opening them up, so MGM owns a few properties, so they're going to open up a couple of theirs and then see how it goes, and all these barriers at gambling tables, and they're trying to just do everything. Yeah, it's going to be awkward for them at first, for sure, but it's crazy seeing like it used to be crowds of people that you'd have to, if you're walking, you'd have to like weave through. Now it's just like, well, there's no traffic. I'm not getting out of the car. There's nobody walking up and down. So,
bruh, what movie was it? There's a movie. Is it Armageddon or not Armageddon? Or there's a movie where
Day After Tomorrow or something like that.
Where it shows Vegas. It's just like deserted, bro. I can't remember, or it might be San Andreas. I can't remember, but there's a movie that shows Vegas deserted, bro. I never thought I'd see that day. So. It's spooky, bro. It's kind of spooky.
It's super weird.
Dang. I was talking to my partner about it the other day. I'm like, dang, it's crazy how like it's become normal. So now when it's a lot of people out there again, it's gonna be like awkward. Like, yo, what's everybody doing out here? Like, why is there so many people all of a sudden? Like you get the people riding bikes, but yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Well, what's funny is like how the new norms. We talk about new norms. Like you go in public, and if somebody don't got their mask on, they look at you all crazy and stuff like.
Like, yeah,
bruh. So yesterday was Shelby's birthday, right? So I always do like a birthday surprise, like a surprise day. I don't tell her nothing. I like leave her hints. Like I always put like a lot of thought into it, and we do like multiple things.
Dang, way to make me sound like a terrible husband. But go ahead.
Well, hey, bruh, hey, this was the hardest yet, man. Like, cause
it's only gonna get harder.
She got a pump. She got we got to get stored in milk. We can't go nowhere because of COVID. All the parks is like, it was a mess, man. But I say that to say this: we at one point we stopped at Trader Joe's to pick up some like snacks and stuff because there was like a time frame between dinner. And we pull up and I was like, "Oh, babe, I brought some masks." Like thinking I'm thoughtful. Like, "Yeah, I brought you a mask, babe." And she was like, "I brought this mask too." And we just both bust out laughing. Like, this is 2020. This is 2020 right here. Like, hey, you got your mask? No? Well, you staying in the car then because I got mine.
Oh, bro, my wife is funny when so my wife's so funny. Bless her heart. She looks so good. But she's like, when I was like, "Hey, babe," because this was like a few weeks ago. And I was like, she was like, I'll just go to the store. And I was like, "You sure?" She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "All right, well, here you got to wear a mask." She was like, "I ain't wearing no mask." I was like, "Okay, boo, I'll go." Cause my wife, she's like, "I got to show this pretty face." So,
yeah, man. I mean, it's something.
Bro, it is so funny though. Literally, I was in the store yesterday, bro. And like, I still wear my mask, but like they lifted. And see, that's another thing. At first, initially, they had lifted measures on wearing masks. And then I heard the next day, like, they put them back. I don't know. See, I don't even know what's going on. But anyways, I went to the store and I saw a lady without a mask. I wasn't even tripping. But everybody was staring at her. I was like, shoot, shout out to her. Do your thing, girl. Like,
YOLO.
So, this COVID thing is crazy. But, hey, I want to jump right into today's topic just because we've had guests on the last few episodes or last episode. I don't know if we had one before that. I can't remember. And what I found with guests is that there's so much to talk about that we almost run out of time. And I don't want to take that time to run out of time this time. Shout out to Nick Santos for being our guest last time. It was definitely a good conversation. I know Billy was telling us that we got some good feedback and downloads for that episode. But what I want to get into today is I want to talk about perception. We've talked about perception before, but we're going to try something a little different this time. We're going to do like a 2-part series. So this will be part 1. The reason I brought Deyon in is because I've known Deyon since I was literally 8 years old. I remember playing football together for the Dolphins in our local city. And then we went to middle school together. We went to high school together. Matter of fact, do you remember that when I went body with Kendrick?
Yeah.
In the bathroom on my birthday. Yeah. So this is one of the dudes that put me. So if you don't know what going body means, that means like fighting somebody for 30 seconds. So when we was in middle school, Deyon was one of those cats, bro. He was like, "Hey man, you ain't trying to go 30 seconds with Kendrick or whatever." He would instigate everything, bro. Just instigate everything.
That's me.
So I'm like, well, I ain't about to be no freaking punk, bro. So like, I remember I took off the new watch that my mom and pops had gave me that day because I didn't want to break it. And I remember going body with this kid for 30 seconds and this dude named Kendrick. And crazy thing is that I don't think you know that. I think I told you, but Kendrick is like strung out on drugs now.
Yeah, I seen him one time.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro. Like I ran into him a couple times, bro, and like he had a huge beard with just nasty cake white stuff all in it and stuff like that. And he was like homeless but
that's bad.
Yeah, but same cat I went body with in middle school. So Deyon was there for that. He was there for fight nights in high school when we would play Knockout Kings. We would play Knockout Kings on PlayStation and Madden, bro, and just ultimate trash talker, man. I love Deyon. So but anyways, Deyon became a police officer 2 years ago, and when I found out, I was like, "What?" I least expected that, because years prior to that, I would see kind of messages, things that Deyon would post up on Facebook about just social issues, and at first I thought, Deyon was one of those anti-cop dudes. I was like, "Oh shoot!" When my boys turned anti-cop, and then he became a cop. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So me and Deyon reconnected, a few years ago, and he's doing phenomenal things with Las Vegas Metro. So I was like, man, who better to have on to come on and talk to us about perception? And one of the things I find interesting is how quickly a person's perception changes when they get into the profession. So I want to talk about some of those things, man. So Deyon, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about where you come from, and then let's work our way into, why you became a police officer, bro.
Like Brian says, from the same city, grew up together. I played football for years. I went to SMU. I was on the football team, but I did not get any playing time.
Hey, shout out to you, bro.
So I was on the team, though.
Hey, shout out to you, because you a lot better than me, bro. Like, I play at UNLV, and if I tell anybody my story, like, man, I played every single game. We got interception after interception. I won like 10 games and stuff like that, knowing I didn't get no playing time, bro.
See, I would do that, but when they start pulling them stats up, like, oh man, this dude should have went to the NFL. He sound like 12 picks in the season.
It's like the coronavirus memes when it talks about like you gonna tell your kids about your great grandkids about what coronavirus was, and you gonna hype it up to be something that it was like that it really wasn't.
Right,
but but my bad, bro.
No, ain't no thing. So after that, I dabbled in boxing for a little bit, but then I ended up moving out to Vegas just for work because Cali was trying to start off. It was terrible trying to get a job. Like, they're offering $950 part-time. I'm like, $950, that's probably about, you know what I mean? Doing the math, I'm like, that does not equal me moving out. And so I moved out there, and for years I did, for about, I'd say probably about the 7 years I did security, either like just for like the Allied Barton and stuff like that. Then I moved to the Venetian for like 5 years, which was cool, man. Like that was fun. But that's kind of what, because you got law enforcement officers who are retired, they're going there and working, or they're being like managers and stuff like that, or higher ups even, than that. So just kind of talking to them and just kind of, I don't know, just wanting more. And then also with, like you said, stuff that I was seeing, that's what kind of pushed me into law enforcement. My perception prior to was just like, man, I would see videos, and like I even tell people now, like, bro, like I get why you're upset, because I felt the same way, but it's just either what's being put out, it's what's selling, what story sells better. You know what I mean? Like it's. So I wanted to be, with that being frustrated, man. I'm like, you know what? Like, rather than me complaining, yeah, let me be part of the change. Let me go. I'm gonna be that good cop that I'm saying people should be. And it's just like looking back on those things that I was upset about. I was like, you know what? Like, I was wrong. You know what I mean?
So don't move too fast. I want to bring something up. So tell me clearly, like, what was your perception of law enforcement before you became a police officer?
I never was like man, I hate cops and cops are pigs and blah, blah, blah. But with like some of the shootings and stuff, like that was national news, I was just like, yo, like they didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like they, and some of them I'm still like that, you know, even after like the train stuff. But it's like some of them like, man, the guy didn't even point the gun at him. He was just walking toward him with it. I'm like, you know what I mean? And I was upset about that stuff, not knowing that, you know, how the training goes and really what it means to be on that other side of, you know, potentially losing your life. But yes, so it was never like a anti-cop thing, but it was just like, yo, something's going on, you know, it's not right. And what they're doing is, you know, I don't know what it is as far as training and stuff like that. And, you know, I was believing the media hype, to be honest.
Well, it's funny. I find that funny because, and correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, but everybody wants to tell us how we should train or what kind of training we don't have without actually really knowing the training that we do have. And I've noticed that so many times on my Tillman takes and whatever I do, I always get messages like, well, the officer should be trained to do this, or they should know that with their training. And it's like, you have no clue what we actually do or what we do train and what we don't train. One of the things I find funny is that, don't get me wrong, there are some departments across the country that have terrible training. And we all know that. You know what I mean? We all know that. You know what I mean? I've seen them here and there before, but the other thing is I know departments across the country that have phenomenal training. So when you make a blanket statement and say like, these cops, they should know that, or they should be trained to do this or this and that, they have no clue what type of training actually even goes into law enforcement. So is that kind of like where your thinking was, your thought process was, is like they should be trained better to respond accordingly? Or
yeah, it's like with the whole, you know, you mentioned it before in the show, is like the taser thing. Like, oh, why did they just tase them? And it's like, but not knowing tasers they fail. It could depend on the clothing that they're wearing. It could depend on if they're running, where the probes hit, all this other stuff. It's so much that goes into using the taser, to where sometimes it's like, without knowing all that, you're like, yo, he could have just tased him. Why didn't he just tase him? When really that's not even the best option. You know what I mean? And so with, or like, you know, man, they need to learn to de-escalate more. But it's like sometimes either force or sometimes being more stern or whatever you're doing is de-escalation. You know what I mean? It's not just always talking.
So let me walk you through. So you decide to make a decision. You say, hey, look, I'm going to go try to be a part of the change. You know, I'm seeing you're acting on what you're seeing, saying, hey, look, you know, I see some bad things. I think I can do better. So you make the decision to go become a police officer. So you go to the academy, right? Tell me like what the academy was like. Did it make you feel like, hey, like, you know, this is exactly what I want to do? Or were you still kind of questioning, like, did I make the right decision? Like, walk me through what you felt during the academy.
It starts off obviously excited, you know what I mean, ready, you know, glad to be there. Actually at one point, man, I almost quit, man. Like,
really?
Yeah, so we have a stress academy. And so they're like, you know, they're on you, and I for the life of me, I couldn't stop getting in trouble, bro. I was like, oh my God.
For some reason, I believe that, bro. Yeah. For some reason, I believe
every
that.
class has one.
Yeah, I was that one. You know what I mean? Like, I was that one, and you know, it was like I was just like, man, like I had my son at that time, and like the first 3 weeks, so he was born 10 days before the academy started, but then he was in the hospital at first. So for like the first couple weeks, I was going from the academy, go home, take a shower, do my homework at the hospital, because he was in the NICU, so he was staying there and stuff like that. So the first 3 weeks was hard. Then, like I said, on top of it, just getting, and they was giving us mad homework. Like, yeah, I mean,
that's how
it was crazy. Story about us getting in trouble, I'll tell you that later if, you know, you ask about it or whatever. But
no, I want to hear about it.
Oh, okay. So we're like, I would say I'm like a month and a half in, and you have all this stuff that it's a list of items that they give you to buy, right? And they say you got to bring these every day. But like some of the stuff is like shower stuff, or you got to bring like 12 pairs of
We all
socks.
know about the shower stuff.
But it's like,
Did you get a towel like my boy AJ?
Nah. We had a towel, but there was nowhere to even take showers at. So it's like you bringing all
What?
this stuff. Yeah. So it was so many academies going at the time. So we were putting our stuff in the locker room, but part of the locker room was also the shower where it's no time.
Well, we all know where coronavirus started at.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Right. Yeah, y'all nasty out there.
But so, I'm like, dang, man, like I'm bringing all this stuff. I'm like, we never even, I don't need 6 pair of socks, So I start, just taking stuff out of my bag, just not bringing it, or I would forget it. And then one day I left my keepers, that keep that Bell's belt up or whatever. So we did some extras. Oh, we had to do push-ups. And well, before that, our sergeant, she was like, if you guys keep forgetting stuff, I'm going to make you guys do a gear bag inspection and blah, 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 saying all this stuff. And I'm like, okay,
like,
cool.
whoa.
She said next time. So I'm going to bring everything next time, But then they're like, all right, grab some carpet. So now, we doing push-ups and, as they making you hold it, you start to, bend your back a little bit. Bro, my belt start coming out. My duty belt was at my stomach. They was like, Mcelroy, where's your keepers? I'm like, ma'am, you know what I mean? So then they're like, all right, we're going to do it this time. Bruh, it was terrible. So we all out on the parade deck.
You got everybody in trouble.
Yeah, I did. I definitely did. And it gets worse from here, right? And so we're out on the parade deck, and she's like, or they have a list of the items that we're supposed to have or whatever. They're like, go in your bag, grab out 3 extra T-shirts. But I ain't had 3 extra T-shirts. And so I'm like, dang. So, and they're like, it's 1,000. You had to write 1,000 words for everything that you forgot, right? So they're like, go get an extra T-shirt. But I'm holding up 2 T-shirts. We're supposed to have 3. And then now, we got to do our run or whatever, come back. And it got to the point to where they were asking for stuff. And I'm just like, bro, I know I don't have it in there, but I'm going to still look like I do. Like I may have it in there. You know what I mean?
Like it's going back to
Yeah,
your
exactly,
career, bro.
I'm just like, I didn't want to just stand there like, well, Sarge, I know I don't have it. You know what I mean? And so, bro, I ended up with 9,000 words, G. And I had to do that over the weekend. So yeah, I was definitely that guy in the academy who I kept forgetting stuff, couldn't figure it out. You know what I mean?
Bro,
That's called a blue falcon right there. That's what
I was definitely
bro.
was, man.
Well, what's funny is like I tell people, because we had a stress academy myself, and I tell people like I've never been a quitting type, but I'll tell you those memos, that homework almost made me quit. Like the physical part, I could do that. The gas and pepper spray, as much as it sucked, whatever. But those memos, bro, I remember we were like deep into the academy. And I was past the point where I was getting homework. Like they would stop giving us homework as you went on to the academy. Well, midway through the academy, we're at that place where you still get homework, but it wasn't like they weren't overbearing you with it like they were in the beginning of the academy. Bro, they hit me with like 9 memos one night, bro. I almost had a relapse, dog. Like I told my boy, I was like, bro, I'm about to quit, bro. I can't believe they gave me 9 memos. So a memo is like it's just homework. Like you got like a 3-page memo that you have to write on, the importance of officer safety. But you had it was handwritten. Everything had to be capitalized. Everything had to be even, square. I remember one time I had a small ink smudge on my paper, bro. And then you got to make that decision. You got to make that executive decision. Like,
do I risk it?
Do I risk it? Do I risk it? Or do I just start over right now, bro? And if you like towards the end of doing your memos, you're like, man, I'm just going to risk it. If you at the beginning, you like, I might as well just start over. And then you like, wait, you turn that homework in, you like, man, I hope they didn't see it. And sure enough, bro, they circle that ink mark in red, bro, and then make you do the whole thing over. So it was crazy, man. That was a part for me. So you're in the academy, you graduate. Obviously, you didn't quit, which is good. Were you still like at that point, like, man, this is exactly what I want to do, or were you kind of questioning your decisions at all?
Nah, man. I even still to this day, I'd be like, bro, I'm so glad I didn't quit because it's worth it. Like, it's a huge accomplishment first and foremost, but it's like, man, like I able to be in a position to do what I set out to do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was rough at one point, but I'm so glad that I didn't quit. And it's just the same thing of like, yeah, man, I'm glad that I'm doing this or whatever. That's where I'm at.
So you graduate the academy, and then what was your first assignment out of the academy?
I was in actually an easy area. So we got, at that time we used to have 4 phases or whatever. And so it was like 6 weeks for each phase. And so you ride with your FTO, and then first week or so, you're just sitting in the car, you're just a ride along, and you're just watching what they do, and they're showing you, how to apply the knowledge you learned in the academy to actual police work. It was actually an easy area, and as it progressed, I think that's how they designed it, was as it progressed, it gets, harder and harder, and you go to worse and worse areas, to where then you eventually doing what's called solo beat, so you're riding by yourself, and then that's kind of like the last, hey, before you get the blessing to be on your own and then finish probation.
So you get through training, and then all that is all said and done, and then was there any specific time that you can see as like this was a stamp of, man, this is not what I expected it to be, or this is where my perception started to change, or was it a gradual change over time? Like, is there any specific moment that you could remember, like, wow, that was kind of weird?
I would just say more of just a gradual change, and just seeing like, man, like I'm really out here, like, bro, I gotta, like I'm, when I leave home, it's like, it's easy to say like, oh, I may not come home today or whatever, but when you're actually living that, it's like, dang, bro, like this is real. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, bro.
Like it was, the surreal thing to me is like, not trying to be too dramatic or whatever, but it's just like saying bye to my family every day. It's like, bro, like, my son he's like 2.5 or whatever, but it's just like, man, like he'll be crying when I leave, and I'm like, I'll be back, and I'll be like, I hope. You know what I mean? But it was just that gradual change, and just more and more situations you go through. You're like, because I remember one of my FTOs, this lady was yelling at me, and I'm just like, it's all right. He's like, hey, you can't just let people just essentially punk you out like that, because when you go to, say, Northeast or something like that, he said that can put you in a bad spot, because that may make people who are just watching feel like, oh, okay, like, shoot, we could just talk to this cop, or we could talk to these cops like this, however we feel like it. So, and I was just like, oh, okay. And at the point I didn't get it, but now it's just like, okay, like he's right. Like, you don't want to encourage people to be more bold. So.
Now, AJ, I know you got some questions for him, so I'm going to let you go ahead and take over some of the questions. I feel like we're interrogating you.
No, this is good. You brought up a good point. So a lot of times we're criticized for like what we do as police officers, whether it's, well, why didn't he shoot the gun out of his hand, or why didn't they shoot him in the leg, or why didn't they tase him? And you hit the nail right on the head in a very unique way that I haven't heard before. You said a lot of people have never been on the other side of potentially losing their life. And that's exactly it. Like, a lot of times when we're critiqued, people aren't in our shoes where they're in fear for losing their life. So I'm curious, you said you've been on 2 years?
Yeah.
Have you been in a situation where afterwards you were like, wow, I'm glad I have the training I did, or I'm glad I did X, Y, and Z, and then have you been critiqued for that?
It's actually been a few. I'll say my first time with dealing with somebody who had a gun or whatever, it was I was in my third phase of training, and it was actually the first day. So I'm glad my FTO was driving, because I was in my first time in that area, had no idea where I was going. So I would have just been driving in circles. But it was some guys. They tried to rob the guy's wife. He put up a fight. They beat him up and started shooting him or whatever, right? So then they took off. And, so my FTO, he's driving, he's getting us to the right spot. And then we get out. And as far as like being able to move as a team and stuff like that, so it ended up being my FTO, me and and the sergeant or whatever. And we the guy came around the building, and, he like had his hands up and stuff like that, which, obviously, you're not going to shoot him or whatever for that. But you're still drawing out on him, and you're still approaching them, and then you take them into custody as a team or whatever. So that was one of the points where I'm like, dang, like, bro, like, I see how this can, because if dude would have came around the corner, say, not with his hands up, you know what I mean, then you got to deal with it, a certain way, or you got to kind of, exactly. So
go
ahead.
You knew Ryan before he was a police officer, right?
Yeah.
did you see a change in his behavior or who he was when he became a police officer?
As far as that, so it had been a few years since I had talked to him when he went to college, and I was still in college out here. So not necessarily like instantly, but when we talk now, it's just like, dang, bro, like it's so much stuff that we're saying that was different than how when we were kids and stuff like that, or you know what I mean? Because I used to be saying the same thing. Like we talked, I said the same. Like I don't want to be no cop. Like I don't want to get shot at. What do I want to do that for? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's,
But the funny thing is, I would think like from like a professional standpoint, like a career standpoint, like yeah, our perceptions are like completely different. But yet, if we talk about just our personalities, it's the exact same. Like I mean, at least I don't think I've changed from that standpoint. Where you know, me and Deyon connect, and it's almost like we were like the same way we've been since we were younger, just a lot more mature now. And so I think we've been able to balance that fact of, and Deyon's still Deyon was always one of the most funniest guys growing up, the jokesters. That's why when he told me, like, yeah, I was the one to get in trouble a lot, like it didn't surprise me because I've known him. But we've had some discussions, man, and we've talked about some of these serious situations, and you know, just the way that, I mean, and if you guys aren't aware, Las Vegas Metro is no like it ain't no cookie cutter. I'm going to, you know, work patrol in, you know, the Sin City where it's just everything is glamorous. Like I've seen some use of forces come out of Vegas and it be going down. I think it was a couple years ago I saw the dude where he shot from the car. Like,
oh yeah, he was getting after him.
Hey, yeah.
He was definitely getting,
he was getting. That might be a good Tillman take. So they had that, and then recently I saw one where they're chasing some dude, and dude doesn't realize he's being followed by some undercover units. And so he gets out of the car to go carjack somebody with a sawed off and gets blasted by the cops.
Yeah, dude, he was. So that's the flex squads or whatever. It's essentially what I do. It's all proactive stuff. But yeah, dude was, he tried to carjack somebody, and then the crazy part is like you'll drive by and man, I get it. Like family's never gonna say, hey, you know what? I see why you guys did that. You know what I mean? It's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? But it's like you go by and you see like justice for so and so and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, he pointed a gun at somebody. Like, he was literally trying to, you know what I mean, carjack somebody. Like, you know, you don't know. And then he turns and, you know, it's kind of pointing at the cops too. So, you know, and it sucks, man. It's a bad situation. And I don't know. Like I tell people even now, like, you know, just talking to them just about different either uses of forces and stuff like that. I'm like, man, like it's not a good thing on either side. Nobody's like, yes, you know what I mean, I got to do this. You know, it sucks. You know what I mean? Like you guys mentioned before, it's like it's investigated as a homicide. Like you're you know, so
you're a homicide suspect. And people think like when you punch somebody, like you like almost you're excited, like, oh yeah, I got the you punch somebody, your fist hurt. Like, you can break your fist punching somebody, man.
Yeah.
This ain't the movies. You punch somebody, you be like, man, you be in the car like mad at him an hour later.
Well, not only that, and two is like once you do it, once it's over, like now it's really all just begun because you don't even consider the aftermath, like the fallout
Hours
of it,
of
man.
paperwork.
You know what I mean? Like the action happens that quick. You know, and that part, you know, is fine because you're doing what you're trained to do. People always tell you, we're not paid for what we do. We're paid for what we can do. And so, you know, when you act or react in a certain situation, and it happens so quickly, and you're like, oh man, I did what I was supposed to do. And it's not till you get home and then it sets in like, man, like I either just shot somebody, I just killed somebody, or I got hurt using force with somebody. And that's where everything really begins. And so, you know, you talk about being proactive now. Where do you see, because you don't correct me if I'm wrong, you work a special assignment where you're pretty proactive, right?
Yeah.
Is there a need for proactive policing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because if we're just going from call to call, man, like it's you're just being responsive. You're not out there getting like we've gotten great stuff off of just proactive. The little stops where, again, like before, I'm like, bro, why are you stopping somebody for jaywalking? Where now I'm that guy stopping you for jaywalking, but it turns into something else. Like,
give me an example, because some people be listening to this and they don't understand that.
So this would have been like a week ago. We stop a guy because he stopped beyond the white line. So essentially he ran the light or whatever, right? So stop him. He's a convicted felon. We're like, hey man, step out of the car, you know, because of just the way he was acting. You know, we're like, you have any weapons in the car? And he's like, yes. You know what I mean? So like dude ends up having a gun or whatever. So he's a convicted person with a, he has a gun in the car, which, is obviously against the law. So then we end up, doing a search warrant on the car and arrest him for that. But it's like off of just, something minor, it goes into something major. You know what I mean? So we do that kind of stuff all the time. And it's pretty cool, man. So
and I think that's one of the things I understood when I got off of training was the need for proactive policing. Because I would always feel like, for me, I would always be like, man, I feel like we're messing with somebody. Like, do I really got to stop somebody for stopping beyond the yellow line? Or, you know what I mean? Do I really got to stop this person for jaywalking? I can't just give them a warning? No, I can absolutely give them a warning. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I take away my ability to investigate something. Like, I need to investigate. Like, we had a situation recently, and without getting all the specifics of it, because it just happened, but I was able to tie somebody to a carjacking as the primary suspect of a carjacking from a call I had almost 2 months ago with this dude, just based on tattoo descriptions and things like that. I was like, hey man, there's somebody that he matches the description, stature, everything. So I sent it over to our gang investigators, and they had some information that, yeah, this might be the guy. Sure enough, it ends up being the guy. So there is a very important need for proactivity. What are your thoughts on it, AJ?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand, a lot of times when we're being proactive, we're trying to do one of two things. At least I am. I'm either trying to educate or I'm trying to get something bigger, right? So if I stop you because you don't have both headlights or your headlights aren't on, right? Like, I'm probably trying to do one of two things. I'm probably trying to educate you. Hey, your headlights ain't on. People ain't gonna see you coming. You get in a car crash. I'm trying to save your life. Or I see the car. I see the area you're in. I don't really know you, or you gave me the deer in the headlight look when I drove by. I'm trying to get that gun or that kilo of dope you got in the trunk or in the engine block, right? Like, and a lot of people don't understand that. And something that I know you've had to face, Ryan, because you've done the videos where you're dancing with kids and whatnot, is people love to see that, but then they hate to see when we're proactive or when we're quote unquote being the police. And you have to understand, like, this is a balancing act, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you talk to anybody in the neighborhood I patrol, like, they'll flat out tell you, like, oh, AJ will dance with our kid and, or, give him money if you want something from the corner store or cash him out for good grades. But at the same time, like, if you get out of line, it's a wrap. Yeah. And I truly believe, like, that's how it should be. Like, whether it's the department is split, half of the department's out there doing community policing and the other half is out there being proactive, or every officer just has that niche where they're out here like doing the juggling act. But you absolutely have to have both, because I could go out here and dance with 1,000 kids, but if I'm ignoring all the dope boys that these kids look up to that are on the corner selling dope, flashing their jewelry, flashing their money, and driving around in nice cars, all these kids that I'm dancing up with are going to grow up idolizing these dope boys and then turn around and sell dope because they see what they have. To where if they see me chasing them out, like, hey, yeah, no, we not having that. It kind of changes that perspective. And speaking of, Deyon, you said that you've seen a lot of videos where you didn't really agree with like the use of force tactics and whatnot. And I imagine that you had friends who would agree with you prior to you becoming a police officer. Mm-hmm. Do you still have conversations with those friends, or did you face any opposition when you told them that you wanted to pursue a career in law enforcement?
No, so everybody I knew when I got posted it, I graduated, they were supportive of it. They're like, oh yeah, we know you're going to be one of the good ones and everything like that, which, I believe I am. But it's the stuff after to where now when I'm like, hey man, this is why this happened. Like I had some guy, he was like, he'll tell me, man, I still, love him or whatever. Like he's still, cool. Like I have nothing against him, but he's like, you're more blue than you are black. And I'm like, bro, like, I'm just telling you. Yeah. I'm just telling you. Like, he was like, he said, well, why did the one cop not pull me over? And why did the other cop pull me over for something little? And I gave him I'm like, yo, he could be either on his way to lunch. He could not care. He could, you know what I mean? Like, he could just be on his way to a call. He's like, well, he's not on his way to call because his lights aren't on. I'm like, bro, like the vast majority of the calls you go to, your lights aren't on. You know what I mean? And so,
right. We just driving and stuck behind you because you scared.
I gotta wait at the red light just like you. You know what I mean? And so, but or the other officer may be just like I am now. Is he may be a proactive officer to where it's like, okay, I'm gonna find the smallest thing to stop you like you said, investigate more, try to figure out, let me see if I can turn something bigger. Or, hey, man, you can't have that there, or you can't, your lights are out or whatever it may be, and then have a good day. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, for sure. So, hey, you got to drop a gem for us, man. So a lot of our listeners are either considering a career in law enforcement or are relatively new to the field. So if you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that is a question you should ask me before. Give me 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes.
On the spot.
For people who are considering a job in law enforcement, I always tell people, hey, man, it's a great career. First, financially, everything like that. But, like, if you are feeling like I was feeling, man, it gives you the opportunity to, like I said, be the change that you want to see. You can get that experience, get that knowledge to where now you can help out, because I think that's kind of the bigger thing is lack of understanding, which is what you guys do, is you educate people on the whole thing in law enforcement. So for people who are, wanting to go into law enforcement, I say go in, 100 miles an hour and just learn everything you can, get as much experience as you can, and then shoot, it's a great career, man. It's fun to me on the daily. So yeah,
and you said
no
something.
gym, but
No, that was a good gym, actually. That's a really good gym. And the funny thing you brought up was the fact of, and I don't know if it was AJ or Deyon that just brought this up, but I think it was AJ. The fact of, I think society wants a one-size-fits-all for police officers, but it doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work like that in any profession. You know what I mean? You go to any business, if I went to Apple right now, I will go to, say I walked up on Apple's headquarters, I'm going to see somebody that's a techie. I'm going to see somebody that's working there for phones. I'm going to see somebody whose expertise is iPads. I'm going to see somebody's expertise who's MacBook Pro. I'm going to see a creative designer. I'm going to see a marketing department. I'm going to see the whole gamut, because everybody has a role to play for the betterment of the company, right? Well, there's no different in law enforcement, and yet people want to put us in a box and say, no, every police officer needs to look this way. Every police officer needs to act like this. And it doesn't work that way. And so that's the unfortunate part sometimes, is we get put in this corner and say, you need to do this. And it's like, no, I don't. I'm still a human being. And so I've had people tell me that, you're a black man first before you're a police officer, or vice versa. And it's like, why are we making sides here? I'm Ryan Tillman before I was a police officer. I'm Ryan Tillman. Yes, I am a black man, but I'm still Ryan Tillman. Like, I'm not letting the color of my skin dictate the actions of me as a person. You know what I mean? And sometimes I think we get bogged down and say, you know what, like, I can't do this because I'm black, or I can't do this because I'm white, or I can't do this because I'm Hispanic. Like, you can do whatever the heck you want to do. Will you face opposition? Maybe. Probably. Anything you do in life that's you're trying to, go out and do something better, you're probably going to face some sort of opposition. You know what I mean? So we can't always say that everything is about race. Not to say that, there aren't race issues that exist. We've talked about this before. Like, yeah, of course we know that there's race issues that exist. But don't try to put me in a corner, and don't try to peg-hole me and say that I'm just like everybody else. And that's not how law enforcement works either. So, how have you been able to balance that between being Deyon but also being Officer McElroy, you know what I mean? Or you guys go officer or deputy?
Officer.
Yeah, so Officer McElroy, so how have you found that balance between Deyon and then Officer McElroy?
Just being myself, man. Like, I'm not going to go out there and treat people wrong anyway. I'm never like a bad dude like that anyway. So I'm just, man, like before I stop somebody, me and my partner probably laughing about something, probably talking about it, just like you said before, like we would always talk about each other. So when we're in the car together, we're just talking about each other all day until we're like, oh, shoot, man, that's something good. And then, you go out on the person, and depending upon the energy they give you, that's kind of how you act toward them. And, it's just that kind of up and down of a stop of like, if somebody's, upset, like, or, they're just upset because of the inconvenience of being stopped, I'm like, hey, man, I get it. You know what I mean? I understand. Nobody likes being stopped. You know what I mean? But if it's somebody you need to kind of, I guess, get after a little more, then you take it to where you need to, and then it can come right back down to just regular conversation.
So what I want to do is because I said it's not really about race, but the next question I'm gonna ask you is about race, because I'm trying to make a point. So what's the race of your partner?
He's Mexican.
Okay, so he's a Mexican guy, right?
Hispanic.
Or Hispanic?
No, so yeah, whatever's the politically correct answer.
So he's Hispanic. Yeah. So your partner's Hispanic. Yeah. Since you guys have been partners, have you guys AJ, I'm gonna ask you the same question because I know you have a partner. have you guys, joined or formed a bond that society wouldn't understand? And have you seen, your partner do things that nobody would do, or put his life on the line in situations that most people wouldn't? And has that made your bond closer with your partner? And I'm sure you guys disclose personal things because you guys are with each other a lot throughout your shift. So I'll ask you that question first, and then AJ, I'm gonna ask you the same question.
Yeah, so we actually were in the academy together. We actually sat next to each other in the academy, and then somehow ended up on the same squad again. But yeah, he I'll say just different situations to where it's like that no hesitation thing of like, we always joke around like, hey, I'd be scared, but I say I don't show it, But it's just different, man. It's just different situations on the daily of like, wherever I'm, because he speaks Spanish, so it's like if something where I'm just there kind of like, I have no idea what this dude's saying, but he's like, kind of going off of, his body language or what he's saying, or, just kind of, we have different like code words and stuff like that to where it's like, hey, we're going to take this guy's car. We're going to try to, do whatever. But yeah, man, it's just been so many situations to where it's kind of hard to just pick one. Mm-hmm. But it's to where it's just like I said, that no hesitation thing of like, man, like, I know you got my back, I got your back, and we're not going to, I think one of the biggest things, and we were talking about this the other day, is that we check each other as far as like, hey man, you think this is good? Like, is this right? Am I good to do this or whatever? Yeah. And it's that kind of a yes or no thing of like,
so it's accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, AJ, I'm gonna ask you the same question. I know your partner's Jones, right?
Yep.
And the reason I know that is because you guys have a pretty good bond, so much so that I know his name. I've talked to Jones before. So, yep. And Jones is white, right?
Yep.
So tell me about how, you've seen Jones act in situations that you guys have been put in, and how that's kind of, made your bond either closer or made it further apart. You know what I mean?
Oh man, that's a good question, man. I feel like we could have a whole podcast about, partnership in law enforcement, but it's interesting because, like you said, Deyon, I sat beside Jones in the academy. So the way you sat was in alphabetical order by your last name. So Jones and Johnson were right beside each other. And he was quiet. Like he was quiet. Like day one of the academy, we're getting yelled at. The chief is in there and he's like sitting upright and he's dripping sweat. And I'm like, I'm chilling, right? Like I've been through this before. This ain't nothing for me. It's gonna be a breeze. And I look over at him. I'm like, hey, this about to suck. And he goes, like kind of like looks at me, like glances over at me and looks forward. And I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, well, maybe he didn't hear me. And I go, bump him again, like, hey, this gonna suck, man. And he does the same thing, like just kind of glances over at me. So then I like lean over and I go, well, forget you then. And he just cracks a smile, and like ever since then, I was like, yeah, this is my homeboy right here. But when you're around somebody that long and you go through the situations and like circumstances that you go through being in law enforcement, you can't help but grow closer together. Like that is legitimately my brother. His children call me Uncle AJ. My son will call him Uncle Jones. And that's just what it is. I remember we pulled up on a house fire. The house was engulfed in fire, and somebody told us like, hey, there's somebody inside. And believe it or not, this might be a shock to a lot of you people out there, but we show up first. The police show up to the house fire first before fire ever get there, right? So I'm like, I look at my partner like, it's time to go, right? Like it's time to be the police. And stupid AJ, I don't know why I didn't try the door handle. I kicked the door like it's a movie, like, and as soon as I kicked the door, man, it like exploded and blew me off the porch. And I'm laying there, and Jones kind of like stumbled backwards, and he's like ran up to me, he's shaking me like, you okay? And I'm like, bro, stop shaking me, man. Like, yeah, I'm good, bro. But it's scary, man. It's scary, because that becomes your blood. And I've seen a transition in him as far as the community side of things go. Jones didn't really grow up in like a suburb, but he didn't grow up like super inner city either. So when he first came over, I would be like, hey, let's get out the car and play curveball. And he would be like, he was always down, which is why that's my homeboy. But you could see he would kind of be uncomfortable. Like, yeah. Oh, all right, yeah, let's go. He would just kind of like be like, well, what do I do? Like, man, throw the ball at the curb, and if it bounces back, that's a point. And then stand in the middle and over the car's game, all of that. But now it's to the point where he be putting me in check, like, hey, why we sitting here, AJ? I'm like, oh, I gotta you catch up on my work emails, like, yeah, but it's a kid down here that's playing basketball by himself, and I'm like, my guy, okay, let's go. So, yeah, man, like that's about as unique as it gets, man. That is about as unique as it gets. Anybody who knows me knows him, and vice versa.
Well, so and the reason I bring that up is because society's perception of the law enforcement brotherhood is this vision or image of corruption, secrecy, doing things, not holding each other accountable. And don't get me wrong, that stuff has its place, but that's not centered around a brotherhood. You know what I mean? That stuff is not centered around a brotherhood. That's centered around criminality, not being moral, not being ethical. That's what that stuff is centered around. We can't center that stuff around a brotherhood, because what's centered around a brotherhood for me is that these are guys that I've gone through the fire with. These are guys that I've experienced trauma with. These are guys that have helped me in my most dire need. And so if you look at any situation that, when you have a best friend or, best girlfriend, whatever it is, why do they become your best friend? They end up becoming your best friend is because they're the person you tell everything to. They're the person that's been there with you through the trauma. They're the person that's been there to vent. You've been there to hear your vent session. Like, that's why they become your best friend, throughout your life. And so when you look at law enforcement in this so-called brotherhood, it's not centered around what society's belief is of all the corruption. It's centered around, like, no, these are people that understand what I'm going through. And the reason I brought the race into it is because race has this trauma that we experience as officers, it doesn't have boundaries to race. Like, it doesn't say, oh, Deyon's gonna, understand this a little bit more than me or more because he's black. Like, no, you and your partner are gonna understand this together because you guys have been through certain trauma together. And so, I really wanted to highlight that because a lot of times people just think that, all these cops are racist and things like that. Like, you start forming brotherhoods with people that are different races from you. Like, I have plenty of partners right now that are white or Hispanic or whatever, and we've gotten close just because we've been through the fire together. And that it irks my nerves when people say, oh, you're just a part of the brotherhood, or you forgot who you are. It's like, you get shot at, or you freaking run from this, or you go into this building and then tell me that I should feel some type of different way. You know what I mean? So that's why I asked that question. You have something, AJ?
That's actually one of my biggest pet peeves on this job is when Jones and I are riding around and people know me, right? Like, even before the social media stuff, like, I was out here getting it and, trying to make a name for myself. And Jones is pretty reserved and clearly white, like you said. But one of my biggest pet peeves when we're riding around and somebody goes, man, you're a racist. And they talking to him. Hey, nothing irks me more than that. Oh, a few things irk me more than that on the job. And it's like, you don't know my partner. Like, I've had my partner over my family gatherings outside of work, and he's the only white dude in the room, and he meshes well, and he ain't awkward about it. Like that's my guy, man. So you're absolutely right. And Jones has put me in check before. Like, Jones has like pulled me aside, like, hey, you was kind of aggressive, or you kind of raised your voice, or you kind of did X, Y, and Z on this run. Like, you good? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of going through whatever. I'm kind of bothered by this run or whatever. And you get to a point where, like, each other's triggers, right? So, like, I have certain runs that bother me more so than Jones. So if we get sent this run, Jones will step up and be the primary. Like, okay, nope, I'll go in it. Like, oh, this person's in the house this way. You know what, AJ, stay out here, do the paperwork. I'm going to go in, check the body or whatever, make sure it's good, and then I'm going to come back out. I don't want you to see that. I'm like, okay, cool. And I know his things, right? Like, his things are like crimes against children, like, because he has 2 little ones. So if we get sent on a run with children, I know I'm in there, right? Like, okay, I got it. Boom. Yep. I'll talk to the kids. I'll do the interviews. I'll call the detectives and all of that. You just knock out the paperwork in the cruiser. So, man, you're absolutely right. And that's what it is. But it's not so much a brotherhood where I could do anything and Jones is going to be like, yeah, that's my guy. I'm a rock with him. Not at all,
no,
man.
It's
like,
accountability.
that's my guy.
It's an accountability brotherhood.
Jones will look at me and be like, you're stupid. Why'd you do that? You're stupid. You're out there. You're on your own. In a heartbeat. Yeah. You're dumb. You did that. You know better than that. And that would be what it is. He would help me to try to not get there. But once I cross that line, you did that.
And that's what it has to be. And I told my team a couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, I may be the corporal of this shift, But if you ever see me getting out of line, doing something I shouldn't be doing, losing my mind on somebody, I am expecting you remove the stripes from my arm, remove whatever supervisor role you may see me at, and you need to pull me the heck back. Because one, I hope you respect me enough to know, like, hey, look, because I'm human, I may make a mistake, but at the same time, I respect you enough to say, hey, look, I need to pull you out of here because one, it's not right. Two, you need to keep your job. And three, if I don't act, I'm going to get in trouble too. And so, you know what, there is, you can get in trouble for your inaction as well. And so, that's why I told my team, like, yeah, it may be weird, but if you see your corporal going off on somebody and beating somebody's face in and I shouldn't be doing it, pull me back. Like, call my number, because again, you know what I mean? There ain't no ranks when you locked up in jail. You know what I mean? There's a ranking system.
It's a different type of rank.
There's a ranking
different
system, but it ain't no police ranking system. You know what I mean? There ain't no health benefits like I got, you know what I mean, in the jail system. So that's my point, is like, no, you have every obligation to pull me back. You know what I mean? And so I would expect that for anybody. And that's what, being a good, solid brother is not allowing your brother to do something that he shouldn't be doing. And so where are we at on time, Billy?
57.
Oh, okay, cool. So real quick, tell me give me two of your well, before we go to those, were you working? Were you already an officer? Or were you in the academy when the whole Vegas terrorist attack happened, or were you not an officer yet?
No, I wasn't on. I got the call for the academy like a month after. So
when that happened, did that kind of make you question, like, is this what you really want to do, or did it kind of motivate you that much more?
I would say it motivated me more to just be like, dang, like, okay, this kind of stuff is happening. That's like my end goal is SWAT. So that's like the stuff where I'm like, dang, bro, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be on. I want to
you want to
be
SWAT
in those,
not guys, huh?
Yeah, trying to be. You know what I mean? One of these days, you know. That's
what are the lingering effects of that? Like, is there new protocols, or is there anything that came out of that?
No, I couldn't tell you because I don't know what it was before. So I just kind of, yes.
Man, Billy, listen to the podcast.
Nah, it's a good question, but I just don't know what it was before. But I asked people who were on then, like, hey man, how was it, or whatever, and they're like, yo, it was crazy. People were coming from home, people were trying, trying to just get there because, like if you're in this job and you're one of those officers, and everybody's not like that, but you got a lot of people who are trying to get there because they either want to, save lives, want to try to, help stop what's going on, all those things. So
that how can I help mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's my advice for any new person that wants to get in this profession is, if you don't have that how can I help mentality, this job's probably not for you, because this is an unselfish job, and you should always have that how can I help mentality, whether it's your partner or whether it's the community, whatever it may be, but it's always got to be how can I help that, that how can I help mentality. Go ahead, AJ. You got something.
So I can't remember exactly what the setting was, but we had a Vegas police officer talking in some sort of setting that actually responded to that. It wasn't this podcast. I think you're the first Vegas officer we've had. But anyway, he said something that it just resonated so much with me about that scene. He said, when you think about scenes like that, you think about them being like loud and like action packed. And, he showed up after the fact, like the threat was already neutralized. And he said the most eerie thing that he can't get out of his head was how quiet it was. And he said the only noise you would hear in that entire scene was phones ringing. That's it. Everyone's cell phones ringing. And I'm just like, dude, that's crazy. That is crazy. And, he just touched on it, like how it affected him and whatnot. So, shout out to you guys. Like, you guys did an amazing job out there at handling that and taking care of what you had to take care of. And I know there are a lot of guys who were affected by that, who may not even know it yet. So yeah. Shout out to you guys.
I was thinking about the other day when I was in the grocery store, and this is stuff probably on the cops think about, but I was thinking, like, when I've gone on crime scenes before or critical incidents, and there's blood all over the place, there's evidence all over the place, shells on the place, ammunition shells, whatever it is. And just the eeriness of, like, man, prior to this whole critical incident, it was a normal day for everybody. And then when we walk into and investigate, it's like almost deserted. Like, it's deserted. Now you have a scene that you have to put back together and figure out what happened. Yeah. So I could almost imagine that Vegas thing being like that on a grander scale. We had something similar out here, the whole San Bernardino terrorist attack, which is about 3 or 4 years ago now. Very, very similar. So, but on that note, give me one or two of your most crazy experiences so far, or if it didn't happen to you directly, one that you know that's happened at your department, which I know y'all got them.
Crazy like funny or crazy like that was
you tell me
one each.
All right,
One each.
I'll go with the crazy. I'll go with the crazy bad first, I guess. I was in FTEP and like we get this call like dude is feeling like suicidal and stuff.
FTEP,
like
what's that?
I'm sorry, field training.
Oh,
So I'm sorry.
I
I was like, oh yeah, FTEP, yeah.
That sounds like some top secret
sorry.
girl stuff right there, bro. Like,
no,
yeah.
it's definitely not
Yeah,
secret at all.
They put hoods on your head, and they dropped us off in the middle of the strip.
Nah. Nah, so just FTEP, but it's just more like a crazy kind of. But sorry, field training evaluation program. Nah, but yeah, we get a call where it's like a guy. He's like he's suicidal or whatever. He's texting his friends like, I'm not feeling right, blah blah blah. So we go there, man. It's a whole legal process before you can just go boot the door. You got to kind of go through all these checks and stuff. And so we kind of decision made like, okay, here we're gonna go in the house or whatever. And dude's supposed to have a rifle. So I'm like, dang, bro, like this can be crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Bad day to be the police.
Yeah.
And so we get ready to go in, and we're like stacked up on the, we're about to go in, and the car pulls up, and they're like, yo, that's the parents or whatever. And so we're like, okay, dude might be in the car. You know what I mean? Bro, he gets out. Not he gets out. The parents get out. We're like, hey, is your son home? Blah, blah, and all that sort of stuff. So kind of long story short, like we go in the house, clearing the house, and we get to the last room or whatever. And so we, open it, and the guy's like, hey, somebody down in the corner or whatever. And so I'm like, oh shoot, like, it's getting real,
Yeah.
And so, dude, it was my first, actually, it was my only suicide. It wasn't my only dead body. It was my only suicide. It was like, bro, like, it was crazy to me because it's just like, dang, bro, like, kind of like you said, like, it was a normal day. Like, his parents were just like, oh, we almost back home.
So his parents had no clue.
They didn't know.
Oh,
and
wow.
So we go in there and we, we do everything we need to do, and when we type up the reports, I don't know how it is for you guys or whatever, but like when you type up the reports, and I was the one doing the report, it's like you got to be specific. Like his feet are facing
you got to relive
east.
it.
His feet,
you
know what I
relive
mean?
it.
And he's still there, so it's kind of like blocking the feelings or whatever, blocking the emotions of like, yo, it's a deceased person just sitting here. You know what I mean? While you're over here trying to take notes and stuff like that. And then just the damage that a rifle can do. You know what I mean? And so it was just like, yo, like it's nothing like either seeing a picture or something like that, but it's just like, seeing it in person. It's like, bro, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't look real.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what it is. And so that was the moment I was like, yo, this is.
Well, you're so right about that too, because like I can't tell you how many like death investigations I've been involved in, and it's so funny because not funny, but it's so crazy that every one of them is so vivid to me. Like I can go back and in my mind still imagine or see the way that person was laying, what they looked like, what they were wearing. And it
parents, their loved ones,
even the ones that were natural causes, like, you know what I mean? Even if they died just like a peaceful death, that's a vivid memory that will always be in my memory bank. So you imagine what the more gruesome ones are like. I was on a hanging like 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean? And so it's just, and I still vividly remember the imprint of where the rope was around his neck. And so that's things that, again, going back to perception, that I didn't understand before. You know what I mean? So we're talking about people, men and women that are doing this job, not even accounting for all the trauma that they're experiencing to do this job, and yet we're casting stones because we're only seeing the video, not bringing everything into accordance. Not justifying whatever their behavior is of that video, but just, acknowledging like there's a lot of layers to this onion that are being peeled. So go ahead. Most funniest experience.
Crazy funny. My partner ain't gonna like this one, but it's hilarious to me. So we're on a strip, and we see these dudes, they're drinking, but they look young or whatever, right? So we're like, psh. And they, dude got on backpack and stuff like that. Like, up and down, we've either found drugs or guns, and people who have backpacks or those fanny packs. So we're like, yo, we got to stop these dudes or whatever, right? So, call it out. I stopped my guy. I'm like, yo, get over here. Dude who my partner's going to stop, he like fades back, like he's about to run, but my partner's going forward and dude's going backwards. So I'm like, yo, he got him. He about to just pancake this dude. It's going to be over.
Yeah.
But dude somehow caught his balance and took off. Like, he was fastest thing alive. Like, my man just, he jumped down some stairs. We got on all that stuff, so you may be fast, without it, but, bruh, so dude he was in a T-shirt and some shorts, some basketball shorts, and he was running up the boulevard, like, not up the boulevard on the sidewalk, like, bruh, he was in the street or whatever, right? Just striking out of the thing or whatever, right? So he had the backpack, and, we're chasing him. I'm knocking people drinks out their hand and stuff like that. Not intentionally, but, it's crowded, you know what I mean? It's pretty corrupt.
He wanted to do it just because he seen that in the movie somewhere, bro.
Somebody not even in the way. Like, but nah, so it was dude had a backpack and he ditched it in the street. So I'm like, yo, that's the reason we chasing him. You know what I mean? So I grab it, and my partner, he's still running. But I see a car coming down the street, a police car, flag him down with my light, like, yo, like, they're running that way. Dude starts to take off. I'm like, hey, man, let me in the car. Like, right. So my partner's still in this foot pursuit, heading north. And, we end up getting the guy in custody or whatever. So I go to my partner, I'm like, yo, man, like, you good? Blah, blah, blah. Like, dude's still talking reckless. So I'm like, we take the guy in custody and we go back over to our little PT station. And like my partner, he's gassed, bro, because he was you know how at the end of like a race or whatever, somebody head go back. He was doing that, bro, just trying to not quit or whatever, right? So I'm like, yo, you good? He's like, yeah, I'm good, right? So I come back like after the first, checking on him. Come back like 10 minutes later, I'm like, bro, you still tired? I'm like, you good? He looks up at me, he's like, yo, I threw up. I was like, you threw up. I was like, what's wrong with you, man? I'm out here throwing up.
Oh, man.
Yeah, been there. Hey, I've had to ask the squad for oxygen before, man.
Bro, I've had my fair share. You there, AJ? AJ internet freezing.
It was like, boom. I don't know what that was, man. I think that was something on my end right there.
What was that? What in the
my whole thing was like,
that noise? Yeah. Oh, bro, that's. Oh, bruh. So, yeah, man, Vegas, like I said, we're going to get ready to end up. But, man, if you guys haven't seen any of the Vegas videos, I mean, it's crazy anywhere. And I think I said this in one of my videos. It's not to say that things can't, what did I say? It's not to say that things can't happen. It's to say that, never mind. Just cut that. It was a good quote, though. My point is that in Vegas, they have some crazy situations, man. Like, you had the one a couple years ago where they're chasing it. Do you know the circs of that one? Where the dude was shooting through the windshield?
So they were homicide suspects. Yeah. One thing is good, they put out the little media brief, but yeah, they were homicide suspects and they started chasing them. It was one of the few times, we actually, get to pursue. So he's like, yeah, let's get after it.
Because you guys don't pursue that much, right?
Unfortunately. But like you seen with one of the recent ones, like we're not behind them, but the
helicopter, yeah,
exactly. So it's like, you know what I mean. So, but yeah, so he starts running. Dude starts dumping shots at him. So dude's like, hey man, like I'm sitting in this car, like I gotta chase you. You're shooting at me while we're driving. Some people feel different ways about like maybe he should have waited or whatever, but I can't make that decision for him. Like,
and it's hard to make that decision when you're the person in the situation in that particular incident. So last thing we'll do parting words of wisdom, but I want to ask you one last question is sometimes people get bothered when you say just comply. And so, some people feel like, the words just comply is demeaning and why should they have to listen to police and, you know what I mean, are you better than me type thing. So when you hear the words, what did the words just comply mean to you before you became an officer? And do they mean anything different now as an officer?
Before I would just kind of look at it as like, man, that's just an excuse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why? If he's not doing, because you hear in the narrative, this guy didn't even do nothing. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, yeah, of course he's going to be upset. Like, why would I, comply if I didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, obviously those videos are tailor-made for that. You know what I mean? And now it's just like, yeah, like, I'm stopping you for a legal reason. You may not like it. You may think it's, petty or whatever, but the more you fight, the more I'm going to fight. You know what I mean? As far as like, well, if you're not going to give the information you got to give, okay, now you're obstructing. So now you can go to jail. If you don't want to go to jail, now it's going to turn into, you know what I mean? Something like that. So with the just comply, man, I always tell people like, yo, the side of the road or the time to stop, don't fight it then. Fight it in court. You know what I mean? If you want to, you know, talk about it. Like I even try to, like you said, educate people. It's just like, hey, man, look, this is why we stopped you. This is why it's illegal, blah, blah, blah. And this is what we're doing, you know, whatever. So, yeah, the just comply thing is now it's just like more of like, so you can be done. You're most likely going to get a warning, whatever, but not to fight then. Fight either in court or fight it, you know, wherever.
I appreciate that, man. AJ, the last parting words of wisdom for our listeners.
Yeah, so mine is kind of off topic, but not really. So anybody that's watching on YouTube can see this hat that I'm wearing. It's a blue hat with the American flag with a thin blue line through it. Quick backstory. I'll make this quick, I swear. My brother was in town last week, 2 weeks ago, and he brought this up. And the significance behind that was it was a gift from my big brother. So, you know, that's always going to be near and dear to my heart. But my brother's not a fan of the police. Like even to this day, like he's not a fan of the police. And the fact that he went out and bought a hat that has the thin blue line on it said a lot to me. But then the second thing that was very significant behind this is when he gave it to me, I initially had the thought like, man, what setting am I going to wear this hat in? Right? Because I don't want to wear it outside and people like realize I'm a cop and then I'm like in a situation. Then I was like, well, do I wear it on like the podcast or when I'm recording other stuff? Because then people are going to like automatically assume, you know, like I'm a racist cop or I back this racist organization, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I want to address right there with my closing statements is I wear and I will continue to wear police insignia apparel and be proud to do that because I have brothers and sisters who, one, have laid their lives down on the line protecting your and my life, right? The second thing is I know what goes into this job and I know who you leave when you're retired. And let me break that down a little bit more. When Ryan said that he could remember vividly every single dead body call that he went on and the imprints on the individual's neck when they hung themselves, you would be a fool to not think that that affects us mentally. So just know when you see me wearing this type of stuff, I'm wearing it proud because I'm proud of this job. I'm proud to have this podcast where we break down the job and how it affects us. But two, just know that we go through a lot more than people know. Keep that in mind.
Yep. So instead of leaving you guys with social media meetings today, I'm going to leave you with the Instagram hope story. You know, I got one the other day from a good friend of mine. He's actually become a really good friend. I'm not going to give names just for keeping, you know, his identity, you know, secret. But I've known this guy since pretty much I started policing. He's somebody that lives locally where I police. And when I first met him, rough around the edges, very rough around the edges, had his run-ins with law enforcement frequently. But I've always from day one been respectful to this cat, been very, very respectful to this cat. Long story short, the other day I went over to his house, not knowing it was his house, to get information about something. I had to do an investigation. And so earlier on that day, we had some detectives that went there and they didn't answer the door and they just thought he wasn't home. So I went over there later that day. He was there and he was like, "Oh, Tillman, it's you." So he comes out, we start talking and stuff like that. And, you know, he's upset. He was upset, but he wasn't upset with me, but he was able to talk to me because he's always, like I said, we've always had this good relationship. So he messaged me after. And I'll just leave it short. It said, "It was great to see you the other night, despite the situation. You don't understand. I was ready for a fight, but the way God works, He softened my heart. When I see you, suddenly I didn't have any bad words to say. Thank you, sir, for always being respectful towards me and my family. It truly means a lot." And so I've said this before. I'll say it again, especially for those that want to be cops. Just be you. And Deyon said it earlier. Be yourself. Treat people with respect, no matter who they are, law enforcement or not. Treat them with respect. Even if you arrest the people, I've actually had some of the best conversations with people in the backseat of my police car. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys because I always recognize, like, it's not my job to judge them. Like, I'm not their judge. I have a job to do. Like AJ always says, there's a time for me to be the popo. So I got to be the popo. I got to do my job, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do that without treating you with respect. I'm always going to treat you with respect unless you do otherwise, and now there's a reason for me not to respect you. But for the most part, I'm always going to lead with respect, always. And so if you're going in this profession, just always remember to, one, be yourself, but two, treat people with respect. It goes back to the old rule, man. Do unto others as you would want done to yourself. It's the same concept, because that right there is going to open so many doors. At the end of this story, I found out that he did know that our detective showed up earlier, but he didn't want to talk to him. He just didn't, because he's had so many different run-ins, positive or negative, with our department, that he didn't want to open the door. He only opened the door because he found out it was me. I'm not saying I'm something special. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I'm somebody that's always going to treat you with respect, and you know what you're going to get with me. And so be that type of officer, because that's the way we will change the face of modern day policing as we move forward. So, Deyon, man, I want to thank you, bro, for being a guest on the podcast today, bro. I think this was a great episode, a really great episode, funny episode, and getting to hear, some of the, I'm sure I'll see Deyon on one of the Vegas videos, man. Y'all be putting out videos like highlight tapes. they be putting them out like ESPN highlight tapes, bro. I'm like, golly, another one?
Hey, Deyon over there like, hey, don't say that, man.
I think you guys are up to I think the stat was you guys are up to 7 officer-involved shootings on the year.
Oh, yeah, 8.
8
right now.
Oh,
yeah.
they're like, yeah, we just had another one last night. 8. But 8 in the year, and that's, we're not even halfway through the year yet. So at that pace, you're going to be looking at 16 by the time the year is over.
Hopefully it stops at 8.
Hopefully, yeah. No, you're right. Hopefully it does.
Yeah,
statistically, I mean, hopefully it stops. But yeah, statistically speaking, and so I don't know about you guys, but I know at least in our department, it seems like people are getting more violent. People are becoming more brazen. We had somebody just shoot at a dude in a car the other day because the guy that was chilling in his car yelled to stop, yelling at his girlfriend or something like that. So dude drove off and fired 3 rounds at his car, and dude was lucky he wasn't hit. So we've been getting more guns off the street. I don't know what it is, but people are becoming more aggressive and more brazen. So just stay safe out there. If you're a police officer, you listen to this podcast. We love you guys. I don't have a fair foul. We haven't done fair foul in a while. So next time we'll have to do a fair foul. We'll have to do a social media meeting, get back on those cats because it's pretty funny. But again, Deyon, I appreciate you. AJ, I always love you, brother. And Billy, appreciate all the work you do. If you guys like this podcast, please, please, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. Again, like I always say, the reviews help us learn what we need to focus on and fix and improve. The podcast continue to become more popular. So please write that review. It means the world to us. And if you guys are not already, please follow us on our private Facebook group, which is the It's Needed podcast. We have a lot of good discussions on there. We actually had some of our followers on there be guests on our show. So if you're not doing it, just look up the It's Needed podcast on Facebook and join that private group. So with that being said, we love you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.